Sometimes, the most dangerous decisions aren't made by your enemies, not by those who openly wish you harm, not by competitors with their aggressive marketing, nor by muggers in a dark alley. The most terrifying things in life are done by the people who walk right up to you, place a warm hand on your shoulder, look you straight in the eye, and say, "I'm doing this for you, for our shared future." I grew up in a workshop. For some, childhood smells like cotton candy, fresh-cut grass, or the dusty books of a library. My childhood had a different composition. It smelled of rosin, heavy gun oil, the acrid scent of burnt copper and red-hot metal. That smell was more honest to me than the scent of my mother's perfume or the aroma of fresh bread in the morning. Metal cannot lie. It either submits to your hand or it resists, if you are weak or inattentive. My father was a third-generation jeweler. He didn't just fix things. He felt them as if they were living creatures. He had huge, gnarled fingers that seemed incapable of delicate work. But the moment he picked up a graver, he transformed into a surgeon. He used to take my hand, back then it was small and soft, stain it with graphite dust, and say, looking at the lines on my palm,
"Look, Mira, remember this for the rest of your life. Real work always leaves a trace, even if no one can see it. In every ring, in every tiny clasp, there lives a piece of your time, your fatigue, your choice. That is what turns a lump of gold into an object, and an object into a living history."
I believed him. I believed in it as sacredly as people believe in the laws of physics, or that the sun will rise in the east tomorrow. I believed, until the day I realized that in the modern world, living is just an unnecessary line item in the budget. And traces? They've learned to copy traces so skillfully that the original has simply started to get in the way of the process. Our workshop was a dusty relic of the past to everyone rushing by on the mirrored sidewalks of the Central District. An old brick building hidden deep in a courtyard, squeaky oak floors that seemed to remember my great-grandfather's footsteps, high windows and massive frames. They always let in too much light. That merciless light where every speck of dust in the air and every microscopic crack on a stone surface is visible. My brother, Mark, and I were the heirs to this world. We made custom jewelry, slowly, by hand, with fanatical precision. Our clients waited months for their orders, and they waited because they knew Mira won't release a ring until the facets of the stone begin to speak. But my brother, Mark, was always different. It was as if we were born in different universes. He didn't love the process. He hated the dirt under his fingernails, the burns from the torch, and the smell of scale that soaks into your skin so deep that no soap can wash it away. He loved the result. Clean, shiny, packed in a velvet box with gold embossing. I remember our endless evenings. I'm sitting at the workbench, my eyes aching from the strain. Mark is standing nearby, leafing through papers.
"Why do you spend 12 hours polishing the internal curve of this piece, Mira?"
His voice was always steady, dry.
"The client will never see it, not even under a microscope. Let's simplify the form. Remove these extra details. Let's optimize."
I would lift my head, wiping sweat from my forehead, and give the same answer. Because the value is in those 12 hours, Mark. In this attention to what the eye cannot see. If we remove the extra, we're just left with a piece of metal. Expensive, shiny, but dead. We argued for years. It was our strange dynamic. I was the heart of the workshop, its chaotic and passionate energy, and he was its cold, calculating brain. I thought this balance was our gift, that we complemented each other like yin and yang. I thought Mark valued my labor as much as I valued his ability to negotiate with suppliers. How wrong I was. Mark never valued my work. He studied it. He watched me like a biologist observing a rare insect, calculating the efficiency of my every breath.
"We're turning into a museum, Mira,"
he said once as we finished some cold coffee.
"The world around us is moving at the speed of light. People want what they desire instantly, and we're still fumbling with wax models and hand engraving. We either keep pace with the times, or we vanish in their shadow."
I just shrugged it off back then. I thought it was just the usual grumbling of a businessman who wanted more profit. I didn't know that Mark had already bought the tickets to this new age, and those tickets only had one seat, for him. The upgrade didn't happen overnight. It was a silent, creeping occupation. First, Mark brought in new 3D scanners.
It's just for cataloging the archives, Mira.
He smiled, using his most disarming expression.
To make sure your best work stays in digital form, in case of fire or theft.
Then, the latest generation of CNC machines appeared in the workshop. They stood in the corner like silent white sentinels, smooth plastic, flickering blue indicators. They looked alien among our old vices and wooden mallets. The workshop began to fill with a new sound. Before, it was a rhythmic, living tuck-tuck-tuck, punctuated by the hiss of water. Now, a continuous, maddening ultrasonic whistle. The hum of servers in the basement became the background noise of my life. Mark started spending more time in the workshop than I did. But he wasn't working at a bench. He walked around with a tablet, installing cameras at different angles.
Intellectual property, sister.
He'd say, not looking at me.
This is the future. Software is now more important than any tool.
I tried not to notice the discomfort. I worked. I forced myself to think that all these machines were just assistants, that I was still in charge. After all, a machine cannot invent a sketch. A machine cannot feel the character of a stone. That day started like any other. I arrived at 7 in the morning. The workshop was quiet, save for the hum of the servers below. I walked up to the door of my studio, my sanctuary. I pressed my keycard to the reader. Usually there was a soft, welcoming click of the lock. But this time, red letters lit up on the small screen above the handle. Access denied. I frowned, rubbed the card on my jeans, tried again. The same sound, the same red light. It reflected in my pupils, and in that moment, a real chill ran down my spine. It wasn't the chill of a draft. It was the chill of alienation. As if the house I had lived in my whole life suddenly stopped recognizing me. I jerked the handle. Locked. Mark, the lock is glitching! My brother's voice came through the intercom. It sounded strange. Too clean, without a single hint of static.
Come up to my office, Mira. We need to talk.
Mark's office now looked more like a mission control center. Monitors everywhere, graphs, scrolling lines of code. When I walked in, he didn't even look up. His fingers flew across the keyboard with a speed that felt unnatural. Mark, what's wrong with the door? Why isn't my pass working? He froze. Slowly, very slowly, he closed the laptop lid. The office became terrifyingly quiet.
It's not an error, Mira, and it's not a system glitch. It's a decision. My decision.
I stood frozen in the middle of the room. My hands stained with polishing paste. I hadn't had time to wash them, clenched into fists. What decision? That's my studio. My workbench is in there. There's an unfinished order for the Berg family. Mark finally looked at me. There was no hatred in his eyes. There was something worse, a cold, calculating pity. It's the way people look at an old flip phone that still works, but is no longer of any use.
The Berg's order is already finished, Mira. It's packed and waiting to be shipped.
Finished by whom? I didn't finish it. I still had to set the stones.
The machine handled it.
He cut me off.
We analyzed your recent work. Over the last 6 months, the system recorded your every micro movement. The machine does your work 8 times faster. The precision is higher by 4 orders of magnitude. It doesn't get tired. Its hands don't shake. It doesn't ask for days off because of a migraine.
I stood there, gasping for air like a fish out of water. And what about me? Mark? This is my life. It's all I have. You can't just erase me from the equation. He sighed, stood up, and walked over to me. He placed his hand on my shoulder, that same warm hand from my prologue.
You are no longer necessary for the production cycle, Mira. You are a creator, yes. No, creativity is just a complex algorithm of decision-making, and we have successfully transferred that algorithm to another medium. Your skills are now data, and the data belongs to the company.
Are you firing me?
I am liberating you.
He replied, and his voice carried the sincere conviction of a fanatic.
You can be whoever you want now. No, the workshop no longer needs a human.
I couldn't just leave, not after he said I was data. I went back that night. I knew the building better than Mark did. I knew an old ventilation shaft had a passage that hadn't been blocked by the new sensors. I crept into the workshop. No lights, navigating by memory, and the flicker of LEDs on the equipment. The smell had changed. My father's signature aroma, copper and oil, was gone. Now it smelled of ozone, burnt insulation, and something sterile, like an operating room. I was looking for answers. I didn't believe a simple machine could replace me. I knew Mark was hiding something. In the furthest corner, behind a massive oak cabinet that had been there since the beginning, I noticed a strange reflection. I pushed with all my might. The cabinet, which used to feel immovable, gave way with a mournful creak. Behind it, built into a wall niche, was a safe, a state-of-the-art model with a biometric scanner. But Mark was always predictable in his sentimentality. He used passwords linked to family history. Father's death date? No. The day the workshop was founded? No. I entered the date I made my first ring. July 12th. There were no gold bars inside. There were no stacks of cash. It was there. It wasn't a giant factory robot. It was a graceful, terrifyingly human-like limb. It was made of matte titanium and some dark polymer. On the shoulder of this device, I saw something that made my heart skip a beat. There was an engraving, my signature. Mira V. With that specific flourish on the M that I had spent years perfecting so it could never be forged. My signature on a piece of cold iron. It wasn't just equipment. It was my digital twin, my tombstone, erected while I was still alive. I stood before this creature in the dark, shaking. Now I understood everything. Those scanners, those archive cameras Mark had installed everywhere. They weren't just filming jewelry. They were filming me. They were recording every tremor of my fingers, every time I held my breath before a decisive strike, my microscopic pauses, my tempo, the way I held the graver at a 42-degree angle when all the textbooks said to hold it at 45. Mark hadn't just automated production. He had committed an act of digital cannibalism. He had eviscerated my experience, my talent, my intuition, and packaged it into lines of code.
It's amazing, isn't it?
My brother's voice made me jump. He was standing in the doorway, his silhouette backlit by the cold hallway light.
I knew you'd come back. You were always too attached to this place.
You stole me, Mark. My voice broke into a rasp. You didn't just buy a machine. You turned me into a program. You stole my handwriting. My name is on this corpse. Mark stepped closer. He looked genuinely surprised by my outrage.
Stole? Mira, I saved it. Hands age. Eyes fail. In 20 years you would have started making mistakes. But this machine won't. Your style is now immortal. 100 years from now, people will still buy Mira jewelry, and it will be as perfect as it is today. Isn't that what Father dreamed of? For the work to leave a trace?
Father spoke of a living trace, a trace that contains life, fatigue, and mistakes. There is no life in this code, Mark, only your greed.
There is efficiency in it, and the world we live in only pays for that. Want to see yourself from the outside?
Mark tapped a button on his tablet. The robot in the safe came to life. Its manipulators began to move. It was unbearable. The movements weren't robotic in the traditional sense. They were fluid, slightly lazy at the start. Exactly how I always begin, warming up the metal. Then, sharp, surgical precision. The machine picked up a ring blank. The laser flashed a blinding blue. The familiar and yet alien smell of scorched metal instantly filled the air. I watched as my own gestures were repeated by the mechanism. It was like a nightmare where you scream but aren't heard, and your body begins to live a life of its own.
Look at the monitor.
Mark pointed to a screen.
The system analyzes the stone's structure in real time. It sees internal cracks that you only identified by the sound of the strike. It adapts pressure in microseconds. It does what you called intuition using mathematics.
It's dangerous. The metal could overheat. It needs to rest. The code doesn't account for that.
The code accounts for thermal conductivity to the 100th decimal, Mira. Stop clinging to your uniqueness. You are just a very complex machine made of meat and bone, and I found a better material.
The machine finished the cycle. Something that used to take me 3 full workdays was done in 25 minutes. Perfectly, flawlessly, dead. The robot lifted the ring. The laser head lowered for the final touch. I knew what was about to happen. Usually at this stage, I strike the workshop hallmark and, if it's a special order, my personal signature inside the band. I walked up to the monitor broadcasting a macro view of the process. The laser beam moved across the gold. Line by line, M-I-R-A, my name. Every stroke was there, even that tiny, barely noticeable asymmetry in the letter A that I considered my personal mark of quality. Moya family pride had been turned into a vector file.
You know what the most interesting part is? We've already sold the first batch of new Mira. The clients are ecstatic. They say the pieces have become cleaner. They don't know a robot made them. They think you've finally reached perfection.
I looked at my hands. They were covered in old scars from gravers. The skin was rough from constant contact with chemicals. These hands had created thousands of things, but now they were unneeded. You erased me, Mark. You didn't just replace my work. You took my name and left me with only my shell.
I gave you freedom.
He repeated his mantra.
Go, Mira. Live for yourself. The money from the sales will go into your account. You're rich. You're free. You are optional.
Free? You call robbing me of my life's meaning freedom? Father taught us that we are what we do. If I create nothing, if my name belongs to a machine, then who am I? Mark's face darkened. His patience was clearly at its end.
You are a consumer, Mira, like everyone else. Enough with the drama. The world doesn't revolve around your workbenches. Look around. Doctors are being replaced by diagnostic algorithms, drivers by autopilots, lawyers by databases. Did you really think your art would protect you? It's just another industry that needed to be purged of the human factor.
The human factor is the art. People buy our rings not because they are perfectly round. They buy them because they know a human sat over that stone, a human doubted, a human poured their energy into it.
History proves otherwise.
Mark turned back to his tablet.
People buy what is cheaper and more accessible. Aesthetics is a matter of habit. In 10 years, no one will even remember that jewelers once worked by hand. It will be an anachronism, like shoeing horses. Now leave. I have the launch of the second line tomorrow, the Mira Platinum line. I need to calibrate your mood sensors. It turns out when you're angry, your handwriting becomes slightly sharper. The clients love it. It gives the pieces character.
I lunged to strike him, but his security guard, another efficient replacement, stepped out of the shadows and caught my hand with a grip like iron. I stood on the street under the pouring rain. The workshop behind me glowed with a cold neon light. A giant billboard on the facade had already changed its advertisement. There was my face, digitized, smoothed by filters, and the caption, Mira, perfection that knows no bounds. I walked away. I walked for hours, not feeling the cold. Who was I now? I had money in the bank, the price of my sold soul. But I had no tomorrow. Every morning for 20 years, I knew what I would do. I would fight the metal, I would create. Now, my creativity belonged to a server rack in the basement of a brick house. I looked at the passers-by. How many of them had already been replaced? That guy in headphones writing code? That girl designing a window display? We were all becoming rough drafts for our digital heirs. I went into a park, sat on a wet bench, and stared at my palms for a long time. Dirty, cut, trembling from the cold. Mark was right about one thing. I was imperfect. But he was wrong about the most important thing. Imperfection isn't a defect. It is God's signature. It is what makes us different from the void. That night, I decided I wouldn't let him win. If he wants Mira the brand, let him have it. But Mira the human, he won't get her. 2 years have passed. Mark's empire has grown to an incredible scale. His robots stamp out mirror pieces all over the world. He's a billionaire, a visionary, the man who democratized luxury. But lately, I've started hearing strange rumors. In exclusive clubs for the ultra-rich, among people who have everything, a new trend has emerged. They've begun to despise the perfect. They say Mark's jewelry feels plastic, even though it's made of platinum. That there is no soul in them. That they are all clones, born in a digital incubator. People have started looking for mistakes again. They've started looking for me. I live in a small town by the sea. I have no sign. I have no website. My address is passed around in whispers, like a password. In my new workshop, there is only one workbench. Old, battered by time. I have no scanners. Only fire, a hammer, and my hands. I work very slowly. 1 ring a month. Sometimes 1 every 2 months. And it costs 10 times more than anything Mark produces. Because inside every piece I make is the real me. With my fatigue, with my thoughts, with my pain. Yesterday, a client came to me. He brought a ring from Mark's line, gold with my family engraving. It's dead. I can feel it against my skin. Make me something living. I took that ring and melted it down. I destroyed the perfect copy to create an imperfect original. Technology took my yesterday. It bit off a piece of my life, chewed it up, and spat it out in the form of gold bars. But it couldn't take my tomorrow, because tomorrow is a choice, and I choose to remain human. When technology takes your yesterday, you must find the strength to build your tomorrow, the part of yourself that cannot be turned into code. Remember, real work always leaves a trace, and that trace is you.